In a world that is becoming increasingly more aware of what it's like to be raised by a narcissistic mother, it almost feels harmless to hear that you were raised by a codependent mother, right? She's always helping, serving, fixing, self abandoning. But what lies underneath the surface for the women raised by codependent mothers is that they've been left to feel invisible their entire lives. Because your codependent mother will never choose you, because she's already chosen someone else. And it's always a man, a brother, a father, but you never. In her eyes, you're as invisible as she has been her entire life. Codependency is, after all, a systemic issue, a way mothers pass down to their daughters what being useful, patriarchy-approved woman looks like. Self-abandoning, selfless, invisible, always giving, sacrificing, teaching them ultimately to adapt in a man-centric world that promises validation and approval should we perform well enough to be chosen. And the tragedy is that being chosen becomes a substitute for being seen. And being needed, it becomes the substitute for being loved. And being used becomes the substitute of being valued. And we are left trying to do life with substitutes that are really just painful reminders of how unworthy and invisible we've always been made to feel. Your codependent mother can never see you because she cannot see herself, especially if this mother is coupled with a narcissistic, all-consuming father. Forget about it. Your entire life will be watching through the sidelines as she's acting out this dramatic bond with this man who, much like her own father, cannot see her. She's like a little girl begging to be loved by a man who will never love her, leaving you out of the mother-daughter experience unless, except, you're filling in the space he leaves empty, and you ultimately become your mother's mother. So the codependent mother, who is the codependent mother? The codependent mother is the enmeshed mother. The mother that cannot see herself as a separate being than you, but in a way where she's attached to you and she thinks you're her and she is you, right? She just almost doesn't differentiate it. The codependent mother is the mother that guilt trips you as a way to sort of get something from you. And she's always kind of like sad and lonely and a miserable wreck that is unable to take care of herself, making you feel responsible for her condition. And usually her condition is due to your possibly father or her own mess, but it always tends to be your thing. And so she's really good at guilt tripping you. And she's also very good at using victimhood as her identity, right? She always needs someone to rescue her from her suffering. She wants sympathy. And the thing is that for her, being a victim is way of life, because if not, she would have to be held accountable and do things that she doesn't want to do, like take responsibility of herself. She's not going to do that. She's always the victim of someone else. And that just feels easier for her to deal with that rather than actually do something for it. The codependent mother is the type of mother that overgives in order to earn love, but in a way where it's just so self-abandoning. She does everything for you. She does everything for everybody. She's just serving everybody. But, eventually she lashes out or becomes very resentful because she supposedly does all of this because that's her way of being. But in reality, she just wants to be loved and appreciated. And when she doesn't receive that through how you're treating her, by everything that she's doing, then she will possibly eventually become very resentful and start victimizing all over that. Again, the codependent mother is a mother with no boundaries. She may see you as her little friend and tell you everything about her and her relationship with your father. And she's just, the boundaries do not exist with this woman. The other characteristic of the codependent mother is she's very fearful of things because she's afraid of things herself. So she will disguise all of these fears as worry for you. She'll say, I just want you to be safe. I don't think that's a good idea. I'm scared for you. But what she's really scared of is to be left behind and emotionally replaced. So in essence, your codependent mother kind of needs you to continue to thrive and feel needed. And when you're becoming too brave and you want to go out and do life, she will kind of want to be like, no, you don't have to come back, because she wants you to be her emotional conduit, because most likely the codependent mother is not able to maintain a healthy relationship with her partner. And again, the partner that she chose is possibly quite narcissistic, as these two tend to match really great, right? The match made in hell. So she needs you to continue having some type of relationship, because she has probably put you in that space where you are replacing the bond that she's not able to achieve with this man. Now, what else does she do? She is always, very emotionally fragile, but that's a little bit weaponized and trying to control you, right? So when you confront her, she'll cry, she'll break down, and then she'll, kind of suddenly becomes your victim. She's very good at doing that. And her emotional fragility, she knows, is something that moves you, and she will use it. Not that she's not emotionally fragile, but she will use it. Now, the other thing that she will do, which, you would think, oh, it's codependent mothers, they're harmless. She kind of competes with you. If you're a woman and you start braving up to life and, again, distancing yourself from her, and she just starts to feel less than. She's a quite insecure woman. The codependent woman does not know her worth, so she's quite insecure. Which means that when you start sort of doing life, she will get a little bit resentful, or maybe start with backhanded compliments, right? Because speaking underneath her breath is her way of doing things. She'll never say them up front. And she actually thinks, oh, what did I say? I didn't say anything. Always behind this face of like, I'm harmless, I didn't do anything. But she'll be there and poke some holes. And the most important thing that a codependent mother does is, of course, she needs to be needed, right? That's her sense of identity, which means that she might entrap you into needing her indefinitely, right? She will not really teach you to live life without her or live life without needing her. So in a way, she will, sabotage your process, your progress, and sort of like whenever you're in crisis, she wants to be needed so much. So she will emerge, like, oh, I'm going to save you. I'm going to fix you from this, because she just wants to feel useful. But in a way, the codependent mother can be enabling, right? Because her only way of feeling loved and appreciated is when she is doing something for others and being needed. So sometimes if we want to be needed so badly, we will disable those around us so that they continue to need us, so that we can feel worthy. But there's more. There's more about the codependent mother that I want to talk about today. And it's more about the dynamic of being codependent and how the unworthiness that the codependent woman feels outside of being needed or performing becomes something that she chases through male validation. And it is a very observable thing in our world that women are sort of raised and trained to be codependent more than anything, in the way that sort of is being reinforced by how we view what types of women are being chosen, right? What kind of women does society praise the most? The self-abandoning ones, right? The ones that care about everybody, the selfless ones, the ones that are always sacrificing, that are always doing for others, the mothers. But mothers in a way where they're mothering everybody, they're tolerant, they put themselves last, right? They praise these traits on women. And I want to say that if being selfless was a virtue, men would have been doing it. But we are being praised for that type of behavior because it's convenient for those that are going to be using us for it. So the lens that I want to look at the codependent mother today is also this, right? That she's pursuing her worth through validation of others, and those others are going to tend to be men, your father, her father, men who dismiss and reject her because she needs to be seen by them. So she's stuck in her own loop of her own childhood. Remember, this is systemic. This didn't start with your mother. This is how women have been brought up and how they've been adapting, right? But she's waiting to be chosen, seen, and validated. And she'll do anything for it, right? So this woman makes being chosen her life's mission. And so she will, when she has a partner, with your father, she will merge with him so much and side with him and tolerate him and enable him so much, even if he's abusive to his own children. So she will defend him, excuse him, forgive him over and over again, and not really protect her children, right? So all of this fixation with being chosen, mixed with understanding or thinking she can get it through a man, puts her own children in danger. And these mothers, based on how they value and center men based on how they've been conditioned by their own sort of father, possibly breadcrumbing them, or also their mother teaching them what it's like to be a woman is just to serve men and center men and have the opinion of men be the most important thing, and putting all these masks and faces so that men like you. What she will do is she will raise even her own sons like they're gods, right? The proximity to her sons, again, gives her value because they're boys. And she might make them her emotional husband, her pride, her source of male love, right? Is, again, since possibly her partner isn't doing that. But when it comes to the daughter is invisible. The daughter will just be trained to do what the mother has been doing, and that should be it. The daughter will even have to sort of mother her instead, right? So the way she views and perceives women through her lens, through her own insecurity and unworthiness, is the same way that she will see her daughter. It's very difficult not to, right? There's no much value in proximity to women in comparison to acceptance and proximity to men, as far as she's concerned. Because the codependent mother is ultimately a pick-me, right? She is a pick-me. And again, it's conditioning, but it is what it is, right? She's centered all of her attention in being chosen, in being needed, in being valued. And all of this usually evolves and shows through her relationship with her partner, and how that sort of unfolds. It just affects everybody around her. So your experience of having such a mother is that you came second, right? You're always starved for attention. The first primary person that she focused on was the man of her life. No matter how abusive, absent, or dysfunctional, you were not her priority. He always was. Even though if she was obsessed with you or she was always around you trying to do things, her fixation is always him. You were never protected, right? Again, if he did all sorts of things, she wouldn't do anything about it, because if she did, she would admit that she made a mistake and she's chosen wrong, and then she would have to leave him, and she does not want to leave him because she wants him to love her and she wants to live all of that. She's so fixated on the male validation that is just so damaging. Women like that, we tend to be very damaging for the women around us when we are like that, because we will always side with men, and that is dangerous, right? And also, the things that you've learned from this woman is that you had to mother her if you wanted to connect with her, because she wasn't emotionally able to do that for herself. So you became a bit of an emotional conduit for this little girl who, unlike the narcissistic mother that can be super mean and she's so abusive and feels like a monster, the codependent mother, you kind of feel sorry for her, but that's where she sort of hits you and traps you in feeling sorry for her. So you end up being her emotional support system, holding her through her breakdowns, disappointments, delusions. You become your mother's mother, really. So the codependent mother basically taught you how to be a woman in this world, because that's what our mothers do for us. They teach us, it's our first model of what we would look like as women. And many of us will say, I never wanted to be like my mother. And then we're like, I'm just like my mother, right? And we're like, well, we can't really avoid that, because even if we try to avoid to becoming like someone, all we know is being that someone. So we lack the skills, we lack the tools to be someone else. And the fixation of not being like someone or being like someone is pretty much the same, because the focus is that someone, right? So what she teaches us is that women are supposed to be small, right? And so you learn very, very early on that women serve and men deserve, right? And then it's just like you learning how to be quiet, good, accommodating, just to be tolerated, just like her, right? It really affects us when we see a woman that is not standing in her power. Even if we see that she's not standing in her power, we identify with that woman because we are a woman, and we eventually become that woman, right? There's a part of us that becomes that woman, no matter how much we're rejected. There's a part of us that is still that woman as well, because that's the modeling. The mother wound and just generally our relationship with our mothers really shapes so much of who we are, especially as women. So what we do is we inherit our own coping mechanisms. We people please, we fawn, we overfunction. We mirror her ways of trying to get love by sacrifice, right? And we ultimately, just like her, just like we were modeled in that relationship that she possibly had with our father, also pursue men just like him, right? So we're playing out the same dynamic and we're living the same thing. And we can say all we want. I never wanted to be with someone like that. I will choose better. But these dynamics are so ingrained in us and almost the only thing we know how to do. So it's kind of natural to fall into that. Yeah, so it's pretty complicated. When the codependent mother sort of shows herself to us as what a woman is, we don't think, oh, she's codependent. We think this is what a woman should be like, right? But anyway, if you are that daughter, if you're that daughter of the codependent mother, know that you're part of a chain of how women have been conditioned to exist in this world. So codependency is just a byproduct of all of this conditioning. Codependency is not a thing that just your mom does because she's just emotionally mature. She's been groomed to become codependent. Now she suffers for it, but that's how she's been taught to exist in this world. So if you're that daughter, this is what you have to do. Number one, you need to stop trying to save her. Stop trying to be her therapist and her mother. Stop mothering her. Let her figure it out. Let her grow up. That's the only thing that it could have been a mother can do to shift out of all of this victimhood that she's in and all of this drama that she's existing in, is to finally grow up. Grow up. Like, this is just her journey is one of growth and owning the responsibility of becoming an adult. And if you continue to mother her, she's never going to do that. Number two, you need to grieve what she could never give you. And at the same time, appreciate the effort of whatever it is that she did. There's no maliciousness behind codependency, at least in the way that we can see it through narcissistic mothers and narcissistic fathers. There's a lot of naivety, but it's still harmful, right? So I don't want you to confuse one with the other. That yes, she wasn't malignant. She wasn't horrible to you. But the things that she taught you and she couldn't give you are still very much part of that experience. And I want you to validate that she didn't protect you, she didn't choose you. You need to really see this for what it was, because you must do that for yourself. You must validate yourself enough so that you can come back to yourself and find yourself unlike she did, right? That she never did. Number three, I want you to stop performing for approval. I want you to stop being the good girl. Like, put it into write in your diary, how can I show up today being not the good girl, right? Just turn it into your mission to not be a good girl, to not be a helper, to not overfunction. So stop doing the things that you learn how to do based on how you saw her operate. Basically, you have to kind of eradicate the idea of being a woman and the modeling of womanhood that you got from her. And you need to start to look up to different women, or even archetypes of women or ideas of women that you want to become instead. Because your mother was picture perfect. If she was codependent, she was a picture perfect woman that belongs in a system that oppresses women. She's a self-oppressed woman, self-sacrificing. She neglects herself. She values others. She chases her worth. She's the perfect woman for a patriarchal society to thrive in, because these types of women will always chase people who are entitled men who want mothers. And they're like, I will mother you. I will do everything for you. I'm just here and I want to save you and I want to fix you and I don't want anything in return and all of that, you know. So you need to tear all that down and start over. Who would you become? Like, what kind of mother would you need if you needed to become someone else? And then you need to become the mother to yourself. Essentially, how we heal out of our own codependent tendencies and the modeling that we adopted and we were gifted from generations before us. The only way to do that is we remother ourselves, but we mother ourselves in a way that we've not been mothered, right? Which essentially is just a totally different experience than what happened to us. Now, the other thing that you need to do, number 4, you sever the fantasy of being chosen. You have to find a way to work with yourself enough so that you stop being chosen. And that will happen when you start choosing yourself. But just disconnect from that illusion. If somebody chooses me, I will, whatever. It's not going to happen. That's not how it goes. This is the part of you that wants to be chosen, like the little girl that your mother never chose, your father never chose, the world never chose. The wanting someone to be in your life is absolutely normal and just fine, right? If you want a partner, you want to get married, you want to have kids, you can do whatever you want. But this thirst, right, to be chosen, if it comes from that place, is a very childlike space, and you need to eradicate that. You need to eradicate, maybe a harsh word to say, but really, you need to get in touch with that little girl that wants to be chosen and work through her so that she doesn't try to do that through others, and especially men, which brings us to number 5. You stop worshiping male approval. Honestly, why is male approval better than female approval? If you want to impress someone, at least try to impress women, right? That's going to be possibly harder to do and with different standards. So you need to basically unlearn whatever she taught you. So whatever you saw in her, you are going to have to kind of unlearn. And it really comes to the core of pursuing your worth through someone else that is usually very conveniently a man, right? Being chosen, getting married, all of that, living the fairy tale. It's just all interlinked, right? We think, oh, one day I'm going to be chosen. And that only means one day somebody's going to love me. They're going to marry me. We're going to live happily ever after. And then when we have that life, we're like, gosh, I'm miserable. And I'm just like my mother. I sound like my mother. I'm doing things like my mother. Yeah, because being chosen is not what you thought it was. I mean, you saw her be chosen somewhat, and she was always suffering because she thought also that being chosen would be something better. But it turned out to be not so great. Not because necessarily having someone choose you and you choose them back is the worst thing that can happen to you. It could end up being. But when you choose from a place of no worth, of just centering the other person, of self-abandoning, of being selfless, who are you going to choose? The most self-centered person in the room. And you're going to try so hard to impress them, to serve them. You will devote your life to them, right? So who we choose is going to be different. Number 6, you learn how to mother yourself. I kind of said this, I guess, already, but this is the key thing. You learn how to mother yourself. You parent yourself. You reparent yourself back into wholeness. And you become the mother that you needed to yourself, so that then you and all the parts of you grow to become that woman. And, that's just a totally different life, a totally different trajectory. So that is basically the most important thing that you're going to have to do in this process. And obviously, through doing all of that, you're going to have to find a way to create enough distance with this mother, which again may not be harmful in the sense that it's loud and it's there, but she may be too attached to you, right? She may be too much in your life. She may be too needy, and that takes up space. Because if you're mothering your mother, and you're also mothering possibly everybody else in your life, how are you going to mother yourself? How are you going to grow up? How are you going to do your things, right? You need to put yourself in the center. Finally, do the selfish thing and be self-centered and center all of your attention to your needs, your wants, your desires, your goals, your life. And I know this sounds like, oh, but what about all these other people? You just have to do it. You have to find the space in your life where you can say, for 1 year, I'm just going to focus on myself. That doesn't mean you don't even talk to other people, or you stop feeding your kids, or you stop talking to people who, are your friends or whatever. But it means that when you wake up in the morning, your first sort of thought is, what do I need today? What do I want, right? You don't always think, what do others need me to do? I remember, for me, it was like little things that I used to do that kind of like really changed so much for me. I used to wake up in the morning, and the first thing I would do is just walk my dogs. And I actually walk them very early because I wake up very early in the morning, and I just love the quiet mornings. And at some point, I'm like, I can't just get up and the first thing I do is for someone else. I need to do something for me. So now I wake up even earlier, which is a little bit dramatic, but I need some time before I get up to think, to meditate, to write something, so that I know that the first person that I checked in that day and I did something for is myself. And that changed so much for me. It didn't take away anything from the things and the tasks that I have to do, but just doing that every day kind of grounds me always back to myself. And I know time is a luxury that many of you may not have, but many of us do have that luxury. But there's always, it can just be one thing, 1 minute. that we first look at ourselves. We first check in with ourselves. We first think about ourselves, what we need, right? And that changes so much. So if your mother was this codependent mother, the chances that you will be excited to heal are slim. And I've seen this because I've worked with so many codependent women. There's so much resistance in doing the healing work for ourselves. And there's so much frustration that we have to deal with this because we've been invisible for so long. We now feel like taking care of ourselves is like a burden. Possibly because we were made to feel this way, or just because we never learned how to truly take care of our emotional world. Because who did that for us? Nobody did that for us, right? So we're always wishing somebody else would, right? Which is why we want to be loved so much and we want to be chosen, because someone will finally see us and help us and fix us and save us. I say it in possibly every video, you are the one you've been waiting for. And that resistance is exactly why you must do the work. To sit with your feelings. For someone who is codependent and feels like they don't matter, or it's too late, or they're frustrated at even thinking that they have to deal with themselves, you are the one that has to do it the most. Because imagine that you have like an inner child, if you think about an inner child within, and all you do when that child is acting out, she's crying, she wants to be chosen, she has all these thoughts, she says, I'm unworthy, I'm invisible, she's resentful, she has all these feelings, and all you do is say, stop, I'm not going to deal with you. And then you go out and save other people and fix other people. And you're so good at it too, you know? You're great at fixing people. You're great at anticipating people's needs. You're great at doing things that are thoughtful for others. And the fact that, imagine if parts of you are watching this are thinking, she can do it for everybody else, but not for me. And that is ultimately self-betrayal, right? It's ultimately seeing ourselves have the capacity to do things for others, but not have the willingness to do it for ourselves. And it's very similar to possibly seeing our mother do all these things for others and not for us, have the space for others, not for us. But the thing is that now we're doing it to ourselves. So the first act, just the act of saying, you know what, I'm going to do it, even if it's uncomfortable. I'm going to stay with me, with my feelings, with my experience. I'm going to find this invisible self that nobody saw because I deserve to do so. And that on its own is healing, right? Because the healing experience that you need is to be seen by yourself, not to be chosen by your mother or your father or this Prince Charming that's going to come and fix everything for you. So this is the journey back to healing. If your mother was codependent, you have to begin your return, not to her, not to be chosen by the men she worshipped or the new men that you possibly want to be worshipped by, including your possibly unavailable father, the partner that she chose, because she chose him out of also her own sense of unworthiness and wound, right? So she didn't really choose a good father. She just chose a good replica of possibly her own father to recreate her own stuff. That's how you heal. You reparent yourself. You teach yourself to become a different woman. You model yourself a different woman. And you find your way back to your authentic self, to your true self, before you started being all these things that you had to be modeled by her, right? The self that she never taught you how to meet because she never really met herself, you know? She never met her own self. So how would she be able to take you through that journey? It was impossible. So the mother wound is always a self wound. And healing such wound will always require for us to be finding ways to connect with the isolated, unseen, and invisible self. And then we live our lives through self-connection rather than self-alienation or this sense of invisibility or this sense of unworthiness. Because when we take the journey back to ourselves, we finally start feeling in our bodies and remembering that we are worthy. After all, we're inherently worthy and we're not invisible, even if who we choose or who we want or who we want to be picked from cannot see us. We're not invisible. We're very much here because we now know that, because we are now able to be in touch and connected with that. I'll see you soon.